In this video we're going to learn how to do some graph sketching. Normally when you draw a graph you have to fill in a table of values and plot all the different points from that. There is a much quicker method of sketching a graph. We're going to look at 4 examples. We try to sketch the graph of y equals 2x minus 1. The first thing we do is look at where the straight line will cross the y-axis. That's what that number represents, minus 1. So we find minus 1 on the y-axis. And here we plot one coordinate because we know the straight line will go through that point. Then we focus on the coefficient, or the number in front of the x, and that's a 2. So what we've got to consider now is the steepness of the graph. So from this starting point, which will make our starting point, we will go 1 square or 1 unit to the right and 2 squares up. 1 unit to the right, 2 squares up. 1 unit to the right, 2 squares up. So let's plot those points. So going over that again, 1 unit to the right, 2 squares up. 1 unit to the right, 2 squares up. 1 unit to the right, 2 squares up, and so on. And we're now in a position to draw a straight line through all of those points and beyond. So this straight line represents the graph of y equals 2x minus 1. For our next example, we're going to use the graph of y equals minus 3x plus 5. So once again, let's see where the straight line crosses the y-axis at positive 5. And there's positive 5 on the y-axis. So as before, I put a coordinate at positive 5. I know the line's going to go through that. Now let's assess the steepness. So this time it's negative 3x. So what that means is from this point positive 5, 1 unit to the right, and this time 3 down. So plotting that first point and continuing 1 unit to the right, 3 down, and continuing beyond. We then join up those points and we would extend that straight line further down and further up. And we now have the graph of y equals minus 3x plus 5. Now for the third graph, we notice that the numbers and the letters appear to be back to front. So what we could do now, we could rearrange this. So we could write y equals minus x plus 4. This is now in a more recognizable format. So plus 4 is where the graph will cross the y-axis. That point there, let's just mark that. And now dealing with the steepness. Now there's no number in front of the x, but if there's no number in front of the letter, we know that there's a 1 there. So that represents minus 1. So that means 1 unit to the right, 1 down. 1 unit to the right, 1 down. 1 unit to the right, 1 down, and so on. So let's plot those points and connect them. And once again, the line would be a little bit straighter than that and would extend both downwards and upwards. Now for this final question, this again is non-standard. Rather than having y equals, we've got 2y, we've got minus x on the left side, not the right. So this again will need rearranging. I would add x to both sides, so I'd get 2y equals x plus 3, and then I would divide both sides by 2. So let's look at where it crosses the y-axis. Positive 3 over 2. Now 3 over 2 is 1.5. So let's mark that point where it needs to be. But you can see at this stage the graph is quite small, so we need to come up with a more appropriate scale. Now I've manipulated the graph, or the size of the graph, so that I can mark 1.5 more easily. So 1.5 is there. The straight line goes through that point. Now I need to focus on the gradient. Now x over 2 means half x. So thinking about it, every 1 unit I go to the right, I go half a square up. 1 unit to the right, half a square up. 1 unit to the right, half a square up. Let's plot those. And then connect those with a straight line. And there you have it. That is the graph of 2y minus x equals 3.